Hello Math 2 students and welcome to your 4.2 notes. So it says the following piecewise function estimates the distance traveled for each hour of a bike ride. So it gives you this f of x and all of these different values. What part of the bike ride are they going the fastest? All right, so one thing I want to point out, we are typically used to seeing lines in the form y equals mx plus b, and in this case, since it's written in this format, it would just be like mx plus b. These lines are all written in the form m times x minus x1 plus y1. So these are written in point slope. So just keep that in mind. All right. So it says, what part of the bike ride are they going the fastest and the slowest? So one thing you could do is you could actually graph this and look kind of where it's steepest. But the easy way to do this would be just to look at the slope. All right. First one, the slope is 16, next one 10, then 14, then 12, all right? So the person's going to be going fastest from 0 to 1. All right, then they're going to be going slowest from time 1 to 2. And then it asks you, what is the domain of this function? So the domain is always, if you forgot, the domain is essentially the x values. All right, what x values are defined by this function? In this case, our x values that are defined by this function are going to go from 0 to 4, and everything in between. You can see that 1, 2, 3, 4 are all defined. So the domain is going to be x is less than or equal to 4, greater than or equal to 0. It says find f of 2 and explain what this means in terms of the context. Oh, and I guess I should point out that x is in hours. So I guess we could have said, from 0 to 1 hours, if that helps too. So it says find f of 2, explain what this means in terms of context. So first off, we have to identify which one of these functions are we going to use to define f of 2. Now, we see that 2 appears twice, right? But we have to figure out, well, are we going to use this equation? Or are we going to use this equation? We're actually going to use this first one here. Or I guess it's the second one. And the reason for that is it has this less than or equal to. So 2 is less than or equal to 2. All right, if we tried to put a 2 in for this x, we would get 2 is less than 2, which is false. So we need to go with this 10, x minus 1 plus 16. All right, so let me write that down. And all we're going to do is plug in a 2. So we're going to do 2 times 2 minus 1 plus 16. So we're going to give us 2 times 1 plus 16, which is going to give us 18. All right, and in this case, it says explain what this means in terms of context. Well, the input is your hours, right? So you could say at 2 hours, this person has traveled a distance of, let's see, do they give a unit? I don't know if they give a unit. So we'll just say, we could say miles. We'll say in miles. All right, so after 2 hours, this person has traveled 18 miles. And they said, how far have they traveled at 3 hours? So for 3 hours, your input is 3. And again, we have to figure out, well, which function we're going to use, right? We're going to use this function here. And the reason for that is with a 3 is going to work here, right? We could say 3 is less than or equal to 3. That checks out. If we tried to use this last equation, we'd be saying that 3 is greater than 3. That doesn't work. So we have to use this 14 function. So it's 14 x minus 2 plus 26. So let's go ahead and plug in a 3. So we're going to do 14, 3 minus 2 plus 26. So that ends up giving us 14 times 1 plus 26. So we end up with 14 plus 26, which is going to give us 40. All right. So you could say, how far have they traveled? The first answer is 40 miles. All right. And then if we're writing this in function notation, you would write f of 3 equals 40, right? Keep in mind, this is your input. This is your output. Also, if you wanted, this is your function notation, but let's say we wanted to write this as a coordinate pair, it would be 3, 40. Next it says, what is the total distance they traveled on this bike ride? So basically the bike ride ends at 4, so we could just plug in 4 and see what happens. So we're gonna do 12, 4 minus 3 plus 40. All right, so we get 12 times 1 plus 40, which is going to give us 52. So your answer would be 52 miles. Why did I use 4? Well, the domain is from 0 to 4. The bike ride ends at 4 hours. So you're just going to plug in 4 and see where you're at 4 hours. All right. Next it says sketch a graph of the bike ride as a function of distance traveled over time. All right. So we're going to go ahead. Let's see. We need to get up to 52. We should be able to go by 2. So we do 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 40, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 50. Oops, and then our 52 will go a little bit off. So now let's go ahead, and we know we have to go up to 4. So how about we just go, we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4. All right, this way we can kind of separate them. All right, so we've got 16x. So we'll go ahead. We know that this guy's going to start at 0, 0. And he does have a slope of 16. So let's see, what might be the easiest way to graph this? We know actually this needs to go 1, 16. So we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Or actually, no, go by 2. So 10, 12, 14, 16. All right, so that's going to be our first part of the function. Okay, so I started off at 0, 0. Why did I start at 0, 0? Well, that is my, this one is kind of in y equals mx plus b. B is 0, so my y-intercept is 0. And then my slope was 16, right? So it's going to be 16 over 1. So I went up 16 and then over 1. All right, so that was my red. So now here we'll use blue for the next equation. Now this one's kind of nice actually. Whoever made this problem was a nice person. Since this is in point slope form, this actually is going to be a point on the graph, which is 116. So we know that this function is going to start off at 116. All right. In which case actually the blue function is going to have kind of an open circle there. And it's got a slope of 10. So that means we have to go up 10. So if we start at 16, we need to get to 26. So we're going to go 20, 2, 4, 6. And that would be our next part of the function. So now we'll go ahead, we'll do it in green. And again, whoever made this, very nice person. They gave you the point 226. So we can go ahead, do an open circle at 226, and the slope we've got is 14. So if we're starting out at 26, we're going to add 14, and we end up at 40. All right, so we're going to go ahead at 3. We're going to go to 40. All right, we'd be right here. Connect the dots. All right, and then the last one, we can do it in orange. So again, we've got 340 as a point here and a slope of 12. So we'll start off at 340 open and our slope of 12. So we need to get to 52. And like I said, we were kind of off the chart there a little bit, which is unfortunate. But we can go up a little bit and we'll draw a closed circle, connect the dots, and we are in fact done. All right, so that is what your graph should look like. And you can tell that there are 3 different functions going on there. All right, next. It says below is a second continuous piecewise function to represent the average distance traveled in minutes. So your input is minutes, and I will assume the output is still miles. So it says, what is the domain for this function? So it says, what does the domain tell us? So the domain for this function are your x values. And you can tell you don't skip any. It goes 20, 20, 50, 50, 92, 92. They're all represented. So we would say the domain is going to be x is greater than or equal to 0 and less than or equal to 100. What does this domain tell us? That tells us that this bike ride was 100 minutes. All right. And then what is the average rate of change during the interval 20 to 50? So if we look here, essentially rate of change is the slope between those 2 values. So we can make our lives easy. The rate of change is 1/5. All right. Over which time interval is the greatest average rate of change? So again, the average rate of change is going to be your slope. So which one of these is the largest? Now, I feel like a lot of times people have a hard time comparing fractions. So let's change them to decimals. 1/4 is equal to 0.25. 1/5 is equal to 0.2. 2/7 is equal to 0.28, and we'll round to 6. And 1/8 is equal to 0.125. All right, so which time interval has the greatest rate of change? That is going to be our 2/7, which is going to be from 50 to 92 minutes. All right, then it says find the value, then complete the sentence frame. All right, so I want you to find g of 30. All right, so let's look. I'll label these. We'll say equation 1, equation 2, equation 3, and equation 4. So if we're trying to find g of 30, which equation am I going to use? So to find g of 30, I'm going to have to use equation 2. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and plug that in there. So I'm going to say 1/5 times 30 minus 50. Oh, hold on. Minus 20, I'm sorry. Plus 5, which will be 1/5 times 10 plus 5, which gives us 2 plus 5, which will give us 7. All right, so that means after 7 minutes, oh, no. After 30 minutes, right, because our input is in minutes, they have traveled 7 miles. All right, then we have to plug in 64. So let's take a look. Which equation do I need to plug in 64? All right, we're going to plug in equation 3. The 64 falls in between these 2 numbers. So we'll go ahead and we will plug into equation 3. So we've got, see, I'm kind of running out of space here. We've got 2/7 times 64 minus 50, and it is plus 11. So we've got 2/7 times 14 plus 11, which is going to give us 4 plus 11, which will give us 15. So this means after 64 minutes, they have traveled 15 miles. All right, then I've got g of 10. All right, So let's go ahead, take a look. Which equation am I going to use here? If I'm trying to find g of 10. I am going to use the first equation. So let's plug in to 1/4 x. So we've got 10. Oh, whoops, I should say 1/4 times 10, which is going to give us 10 over 4, which is equal to 2.5. All right. And then when finding output values for input values in a piecewise function, you must choose the correct equation. All right. Oh, okay. All right. So you don't have to do that part of your notes, so don't stress out about it.